So Trump told Europe to spend more on defense. We've been hearing this over and over. NATO, you guys need to spend more. You guys need to spend more. Up it, up it, up it. And Germany has now taken that as a green light to go full Prussia. Watch what the German Chancellor Mertens had to say about Germany now making it a priority to build the biggest military in Europe, as if this is a good idea. Watch this.
It's our goal to see Germany and Europe standing so strong that we won't ever have to use our weapons. To that end, we will have to take on more responsibility within NATO and also in the EU. I spoke about this to General Secretary Mark Rutte at NATO last Friday in Brussels. I'll just state it as clearly here as I did in Brussels. We will fulfill our obligations. It's in our own very interest and in the interest of this great Northern Atlantic alliance, which, like no second alliance in the world, stands in for freedom and peace, at least in that part of the world in which we're lucky enough to be living. Strengthening our armed forces comes first in our own politics. The federal government will provide all financial means needed so that our Bundeswehr can become the strongest armed forces in Europe on conventional terms. And that is only just adequate in the strongest economy of Europe with the largest population. Our friends and partners call for this.
Oh, do they? Do you think the rest of Europe is really excited about Germany building up the largest military? So large, in fact, that Merz even says, we want to be so strong, we don't need to use our weapons. What does that mean exactly? That means nobody would even dare because we could just annihilate them. We would annihilate them. So they wouldn't even try to go against us. How is this a good thing? Germany, in the history of Germany, whenever they've built up a military, it has always ended in disaster for not only them, but the rest of the world. This is not a good thing. But Merz says, building up our military is our top priority. From now on, the federal government will provide the military with as much money as it needs to ensure it becomes Europe's strongest armed force. We are Europe's most populous country and Europe's biggest economy, and nothing less should be expected from us. Yeah. Our partners not only expect this, they demand it. I can't believe he says, they trust. They love this idea. Oh, they all love the idea that we're going to become the largest, most deadly military in all of Europe. Donald Trump was asked about this. He was asked about, should NATO countries spend more of their GDP? And of course, Trump has been for this. And he said to a reporter, he said, quote, well, I think it's common sense, right? If they don't pay, I'm not going to defend them, he said. Well, okay. For one, I don't think it's common sense. Does anybody here know? Raise your hand. Does anybody know here why Germany's not allowed to have a big military? Why NATO was formed? We all know why NATO was formed. We all know what happened with NATO and how it's become this kind of monster that's just been there to antagonize Russia. But it wasn't always just for that reason. One of the reasons was to try to keep Germany and Italy and the countries that rose up against and had World War II against each other, to keep them at bay and not at each other's throat. And to say to Germany and to Italy, if you're not allowed to have a military, we will provide the defense for you because we don't trust you. Same with Japan. You're not allowed to have a military anymore. You're being disarmed. And this is what you do. I mean, this is what... if you disarm a nation, you have to provide them with their defense. That is, if you demand that they have to be disarmed, you have to provide for their defense. So now, apparently, I guess 75 years is enough for now the new young bucks to come along and say, you know what, it's not a bad idea for you to have your own military. In fact, we demand you have your own military. In fact, go ahead and make the strongest, mightiest military. This just seems so ridiculous. One of the this is because if you know the politics in Europe, if you know the dynamics in Europe, you'd be even more frightened by this because a lot of the smaller states like Greece and Italy and smaller nations, they constantly feel bullied by Germany. Today, as it stands right now, Germany is the strongest economy in the EU. They are the most populated, as they say, and they take that power that they have. They're in control of pretty much the EU. They're in control of the euro. They pretty much control all of it. And they have very strict austerity ideals and measures. And they impose them on the smaller, weaker, less populated, less wealthy states. And a lot of times those states complain, feeling like they're being bullied. So you already have a recipe for disaster right here. Just even without Germany developing its own military, you've got smaller states feeling bullied by Germany as it is without a military. And now Germany's saying, and then we're going to make such a military, you'll never rise up against us. You'll never dare because we could annihilate you. And so how does anybody think this is a brilliant idea? This sounds like an absolute disaster. And in fact, I think what it will do is it will lead to the breaking up of the EU. And maybe that's what, that could be a good thing. A lot of people might think that's a good thing. Others might think that's a bad thing. But I think that's where this will lead, is that a lot of the smaller states, a lot of these the problem is they're more dependent. And so they are going to have to figure that out before they can actually break away. They're going to need to figure out how they can be less dependent. But it will potentially cause a fracture in the EU and people wanting to break away. But then again, Germany might say, you can't. How dare you? We have a strong, mighty military. We will crush you. That is the same tactic the United States has used to be the strong, mighty United States, crushing smaller nations with sanctions or threats of force, right? We do this all the time. So now Germany's saying, oh, that sounds like a really good play. We'll do what you've been doing, and we want to do the same thing. So they're going to start doing that. So that's kind of frightening. I don't think that's a very good idea. The other part of me wonders if this is the military industrial complex thinking ahead, which, by the way, the Germans, what did they say here? They say, this is from, this is an NPR article. Let me just show you here, of Germany, in an about face, Germany plans to build Europe's biggest military. In this article, they say, because a lot of people wonder, okay, what does this mean for the social programs for Germany? It says Germany won't cut social programs for defense. A $117 billion special fund and a 2025 constitutional change suspending what's known in Germany as the debt brake. So it's like the debt ceiling or the balanced budget spending cap. Let it borrow separately from the normal federal budget for defense and infrastructure. This will enable close to $400 billion in defense spending through 2029 without affecting core budgets for now. So basically, they're going to raise their debt ceiling. They're going to spend. They're going to print money. They're going to spend. And when they print money, it actually affects the entire European Union because they don't just have their own currency. They've got a currency that is shared by everybody in Europe. So it goes on to say some parts of German society, especially businesses in the defense sector, are more ready than others for this historic change. You think? Yeah. Brilliant idea. I'm wondering if this is one of those really brilliant, horrible, but brilliant plots of our military industrial complex. You know how they just always have to be at war. They just always need to find another war. And they know that America's tired on going after Russia all the time. We're tired of it, right? A lot of Americans are seeing through it and saying, why can't we just be friends with Russia? That's all they want to be at this point. Soviet Union's gone. What's it to us? Why are we continuing to do this? So thinking, all right, Americans are tiring on the whole Soviet bad, Russia bad. And they're not really buying into the whole China bad thing because, Americans don't really know, what are we going to do over in China anyway? There's no way we could beat China. So just don't even think about it. They have way too many people. And, when it comes to these other bad guys, like Americans are just tiring on it. But one bad guy that could maybe rise up, that Americans would be like, oh my gosh, this is just like the epic bad guy, the evil villain of the history books. And that would be Germany. So it just kind of makes me wonder, is the military industrial complex planning ahead? Are they like, look, why don't we just let Germany build up a big military again? It'll take them maybe 20, 30 years. And then in 20, 30 years, they'll be really mean and aggressive. And they'll start being really dominant out throughout Europe. They'll basically do what they've always done. And yay, we get another war. We get to go to war again. It'll be maybe by then World War IV. We might be at World War IV by then, but at least it'll be against the Germans again, because whenever they're a mighty foe, they're great. And then when we get against Germany, because they always end up doing something really, bad and mean and sinister. So we could sell that to the American people a lot better. Maybe we can even get it done in 20 years, 15 years, if we're really ambitious at helping Germany build up and feeding them some really bad ideas, some really toxic ideas to where they just rise up and end up being so sinister that we just have to wage war against them. I mean, are they just planning ahead for this, thinking, oh, well, here's another, obviously, we'll just resurrect the bad guy, the epic bad guy, Nazi Germany. I mean, that's just, otherwise I just can't think why anybody would think this is a really brilliant idea. I understand that that NATO countries, you want them to spend more for their own defense or whatever. But that's them paying up. That's not them actually forming their own militaries. There might be just ways around this. But anyway, I just don't think this is necessarily a good idea. At the same time, I'm slightly conflicted on it because I don't think you can be your own sovereign nation without your own military. So if you can't defend yourself, protect yourself, then how are you truly sovereign? So, on one hand, I think, well, of course, they have to have their own military. And if it's mighty, I suppose. But on the other hand, I mean, I don't. You tell me, how is this a good idea? Email me. I'd love to hear from you. Kim@KimIverson.com. Maybe I'm not saying something that you're saying, but that's where I'm at with this. Hey guys, thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you could check out Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. See you there.